All right, let's rock and roll.
Cool.
Welcome back, Better Everyday podcast listeners. I'm your host, Brad Weems. I am live here from Urban Movement in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm here with Stu Brauer, owner of Urban Movement and the creator of WTF Gym Talk. Stu, what is up?
What's up, brother? This is awesome.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Good. Got in town yesterday, hung out with Stu a little bit last night. Good times. Stu, for those that don't know you, give a little intro, who you are, what you do.
Yeah. So my name's Stu Brauer. I am 35 years old. I hail from Cleveland, Ohio is what I call home. I've kind of been a little bit of everywhere. I got into fitness when I was 15 years old, being a skinny, redheaded kid, all boys high school sports, trying to get laid. That entire, shoved me down the rabbit hole of strength and conditioning. Mark Ripito, Mel Siff, Paula Quinn, all these guys. That took me to school where I got majored in exercise phys. In 2005, 6, it's like I got a hot stock, right? Someone gave me a hot insider trading tip. Check out this CrossFit thing. I, pursued it. I was doing an internship with a Velocity Sports Performance in Nashville, Tennessee. It's where all my internships and my college, practical apps were. And I was like, oh, this thing's pretty cool. And I kind of just ran with that thing. So from 2006 to I opened my first brick and mortar location officially in 2011. That was my entire world, was CrossFit and that element of strength and conditioning. That brick and mortar did very, very well. And then I did kind of a change of heart in how I believe I should be delivering fitness, what I wanted from a business perspective for my future. So I pivoted. The building that right now I purchased, I rebranded the business, kind of gutted the operations of it. And that is what's now Urban Movement, which we are now licensing across the country. Simultaneously in 2015, I picked up an iPhone, and very similar to what you're doing now, I started creating content that was educational and entertaining and publishing that out there. And that took people sunk their teeth into it very quickly. That evolved into a full-fledged consulting business and essentially a media company. So now I make content for myself. I do media deals with other companies. I create content for them, and that's my full-time job. And then I also just have the pleasure of still being able to be in the gym thing with Urban Movement.
It's awesome. I'll tell you what, when it comes to the fitness industry, there's no one putting out as much content as you. So
Thank you.
It's just truly impressive. I know you don't consume a lot of content, but you are producing it all the time. And, I started listening to your stuff probably back in 2017. Over that time, I've heard you talk about this show called How I Built This by Guy Raz.
Yeah. Great podcast.
I've listened to your stuff. I've listened to podcasts that you've been on. I've never really heard the How I Built This, version for Stu Brauer.
Sure.
So I think it would be really cool today to kind of explore that, hear your story more in depth versus like those nuggets and knowledge bombs that you're always dropping, and let's dig a little bit deeper on you, man, and
100%.
how you got here.
Let's do
So
it.
let's just go ahead and start with childhood.
Yeah.
So what was taking place at those early years that helped you create this hustle and drive to where you're at today?
Yeah, so mom and dad, very volatile marriage. It did, my dad always had these amazing sales gigs. He was a killer salesman, like Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, Wolf of Wall Street. That was very much my dad's gig, and he would do incredible. He would rise the ladder at a company. I remember we were living in Tampa, Florida. We had this dope home on Tampa, Florida. Right there on the water. He had 2 speedboats out there, just very much living like a very much a 1%er sales guy lifestyle as a young kid. And my sister's 3 years younger than me. We had an in-ground pool. It's just, I see pictures of it now. I'm like, fuck, I lived that life for like a hot minute. And then my dad was very much a child of the 70s, and he would, he'd get fired. He was he was addicted to cocaine and partying. My dad loved to party. So he'd rise, he'd do great, and he'd get, belligerently drunk and caught on a bender at a work trip or something. They'd can him. But then another company would pick him up because they'd be like, we want a shark that can sell. So he always had work, but we were moving. We were in Florida, we were in California. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. He was doing work there at one point, Cleveland, Ohio. So we're always bouncing around. They get divorced. This volatile, horrible marriage comes to an end. Cleveland, Ohio was pretty much home for me at that point. My sister lived there, my dad lived there, my mom, and I just was that typical. I'd see my dad on Wednesday, every other weekend and every Wednesday. It was like the shared parenting arrangement. And he kind of bounced back and forth a bunch of random jobs throughout then, and my mom was kind of the single mom role, and it was just me and my sister. But That was it. I was always, I played outside a lot. I was always very active. I would do push-up. Like, fitness to me was always an element. I played football when I was younger. I was big in grade school. I was a big kid in grade school. I'd fuck kids up in grade school. But then I went to high school and I was a dwarf. Like, everyone hit that growth spurt but me.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like, typical kid, typical upbringing as far as that goes as a child.
So would you say your dad's, his abilities and, how he could sell, was that, kind of what gave you some insight on, like, how to work hard at an early age?
There's an article in the Washington Post called "The Last of a Dying Breed." It was written by a gentleman, I can't remember his name. I called him 3 years ago and tracked it down. They wrote an article on my dad in the Washington Post, and it was essentially the lifestyle of this playboy. He worked for Xerox at the time in the 70s. He was the head sales guy at Xerox, and it was this. And he talked in the third person. Like, if you read it, and if a feminist were to read it, or anyone did today, even just a normal person in today's world, they would read this, be like, this guy is a chauvinistic piece of shit. But it was a product of his time. But he was very charismatic. He had a personality. I definitely think I get a little bit of that from him. It's funny now, though. He had 3 big hobbies. He would hunt. He's into Harley Davidsons. I mean, his bikes were everything, and fast cars, and photography. And, we can talk about later down the story, but I definitely wanted to, as I grew up, I wanted to separate myself from my dad. Like, I went by Stu, not Stuart. I did not want to have any association with the man and the things he had done and his ending. So I was like, I'm never gonna get into that shit. Photography, fuck that. Like, hunting, not a chance. Fast car, I don't care, right? And then it's so funny now, because without even thinking about it, I am so into photography and cameras now. And I've got 2 electric motorcycles at my house, and I'm looking to go buy the new Harley one. I just accidentally found out this. It's like, holy shit, is that stuff real? Like, are you not able to escape your parents at some point?
Yeah, all of a sudden you're your dad.
Yeah, literally. The only thing I don't think I'll do is hunting. I cannot get up I don't mind getting up at 3 in the morning, obviously, but I cannot get up 3 in the morning and sit in a deer blind and cover myself in deer piss and wait for something to come by. That's just not me.
Just looking around Charlotte, I don't see many opportunities for you to go hunting, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
So you always talk about how you got in trouble,
Yeah.
middle school,
Disciplinary,
high school?
yeah. And so, to wrap it up for full story for listeners, so my dad's journey with drugs and stuff ended very tragically. He did kill himself when I was 16, so that would have been 2001. Yeah, right around 2001, right around 9/11. And that there's a moment there in time where if you don't have a good steady base, my mom was great. I was playing lacrosse. I was living in New Jersey at the time. I had things that keep me preoccupied and busy, and that was really helpful. But when I ended up moving back to Cleveland, and I would get into a lot of trouble, and it was nothing bad. I wasn't like spray painting buildings or doing B&Es or doing anything like that. I was just a kid fucking off on the weekends. Me and my buddies would go, it's like the era of Jackass and CKY. We'd go to the mall and we had a karaoke machine and we'd plug it in, and we'd literally in the middle of the mall be singing karaoke loud just to get the video of it, and fuck around. Like, that was like the come up of the prank videos and stuff like that. So like, I'd do silly shit like that. I got kicked off the lacrosse team a couple times for doing stupid stuff. But yeah, there was some disciplinary things that ended me up in the weight room all the time, because that's what the tension was in my high school. Like, go down and clean the weight room. I'm not cleaning the weight room. I was working out for 3 hours and reading about, Eric Cressy and all this kind of stuff.
So would you have gotten into fitness had you not gotten in trouble and been in there working out?
I think I would have, because I went to high school and I did not hit the growth spurt everyone else hit. I was like 145 pounds soaking wet. I was, so I was like, well, I've got to work on this. So I think the nature of me wanting to be better at lacrosse and just wanting to be the physicality of a young man wanting to be bigger and stronger, I think I would have found fitness ultimately. This just, probably forced me down the academic route, I think, a lot more, because I'd be in detention for like 3 hours a day. So like, okay, well, I can clean the weight room. That took 30 minutes. And now what am I going to do? And there's just all these texts. The high school that I went to was a crazy successful high school that produced like Division I college talent for football. And there's all these textbooks. It's really good shit. Well, fuck it. I got to stay down here anyway. And if they see me in the hallways roaming around, they're going to give me another one. So I might as well hang out here and learn.
Yep. So you're working out instead of quitting the gym, and so how do we, like, what happens next? Like, so we're roughly at 16 to 17 to 18 where we're at in your life story.
Yeah.
So what's the next phase of life look like? Early 20s.
Yeah. So I mean, I went to, these are my schooling years were I went to co-ed grade school K through 8, but it was shirt tie, Catholic upbringing. Then my high school was an all boys Jesuit, shirt and tie, the whole deal. And I might, again, from messing up and not exactly being the most disciplinary sounding kid, my grades weren't awesome. The few things I really liked, I killed. Like I was in AP physics. Like I was really good at certain things, creative writing, stuff like that, sociology. But everything else, if I didn't like it, I didn't do it. And that was like really early on where I kind of created this mantra. I didn't create it, but I really embodied it. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I don't mean that in like a bratty way. Like I want to do it my way. I mean, like I literally just want to put myself in scenarios where I can literally do what I want to do when I want to do it. And your wife wants you to go to the mall with her. I don't actually want to go to the mall with this person, but I want to hang out with you, so I'm gonna go, right? Like I instantly kind of had that. So I couldn't get into the good schools. All my buddies were going to Ohio State, OU, getting out. My sister went to the College of Charleston. I had no chance. So I just went to this small school in Southeast Ohio called Muskingum University. Their only claim to fame is that John Glenn went there. It's a village even, and it was a dry village. You had to drive 10 minutes out to get to a beer through to get any alcohol. And I went there, and fitness stayed a huge part of my life. And I'd be, then I hit that hot stock and with CrossFit there, and kind of went all in on it. But yeah, it was always like right around there was when I was like, how could I do what I want to do when I want to do it? I hadn't figured it out, but I knew I never was going to go to business school. I never was going to, I enrolled to MTSU when I got accepted into a master's program there, but even then, I truly didn't want to do it. But I was like, what else am I, I hadn't figured that out. And then, opening a gym and entrepreneurship is kind of the thing that presented itself to me as that opportunity.
Gotcha. So, tell me about learning about CrossFit. Was it just a buddy at school, or?
It was the Velocity Sports Performance. I was there. The CSCS had them as one of the pegs. For me to get my CSCS, I could go there, and they would discount my books and testing. They were like an official internship location for CSCS, the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And I was there, and the gentlemen that were running it had founded it, or had CrossFit Nashville in it. They were like the original ones. And I was, during college, I had about a 2-year stint where I was experimenting with anabolic chemistry. So right now I sit at 185 to 190 pounds. I'm 5'11". Picture me in college at 215 pounds and a mohawk.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean intramural flag football, I fucking destroyed you. I was I this 2-year period where I got really into the study of anabolic chemistry. I was doing steroids. I was on test ethate, and there was DECA and D-ball. My girlfriend at the time would inject me on spots I couldn't reach, and I was so interested in anabolic chemistry. I did my senior thesis because I was a sociology major and exercise physiology, and it was on the sociological implications of performance enhancing drugs in sports. That was my senior thesis. And I mean, I was all studied on Balco and Barry Bonds, and the McGuire thing had just happened several years prior, and Jose Canseco had written his book about 5 years prior. And, Lance Armstrong all came out, and Marion Jones. I was just so deep down that rabbit hole. So big, juiced up dude, okay? And I show up at this internship, and I'm like, I'm the man. And this 15-year-old kid kicks my ass in every one of these CrossFit workouts, and they're hazing me with this thing. They're like, yeah, dude, and it just destroyed me. And I went back, and I never did another needle. I never did anything after that. I was like, fuck it. I need to be that fit. What I'm doing now is okay, but I just feel really puffy because I'm retaining a ton of water.
So do you remember the first workout that humbled you?
It was not even a traditional CrossFit workout. It was flipping the tire that they had there a bunch of times, a bunch of pull-ups. It was probably anything that required muscular endurance and any kind of cardiovascular endurance. That was it. I just didn't have I couldn't go for probably more than 2 minutes without dying out. I could sprint 400s, fine. Anything long duration, a 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 minute workout, I was dead. And you know, like, where did all my strength go? It was just here 6 minutes ago. Why can I not pick this barbell up anymore?
So you got so humbled that you're willing to give up steroid
Yeah.
usage, and you're gonna lean out so you
Yeah,
get better at CrossFit.
And when I mean lean out, it was just like, well, fuck, like, because I started watching the Freddie Camachos and the Greg Amundsen's. I'm like, these guys look even better than I do. Right? I was big, like, doing Greek Week and tug of war challenges and shit like that. I'm your guy, right? Like at the parties on Saturday night, if someone came into our house they didn't want, I fucking throw them out. Like, I was that guy, but there was no application for it outside of like in the weight room. So like with CrossFit, it's like, oh my God, I can do cool things with a barbell, and I can make a barbell like conditioning for me, because I don't traditionally love old school cardio. This is really neat. And then you just kind of go down that rabbit hole and you listen to the Glassman talks, and I read the journal articles, because again, I'm a science nerd on strength and conditioning. I love this. So like Glassman's approach to CrossFit and all the journal articles and all the videos, that's what allowed me to sink my teeth in, because it felt like, oh my God, I'm learning more here than I am here in college.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, I just started, put my head down and went towards the light.
So if I got your story correct, you're doing this internship, and then you decide, all right, I need kind of the gym business education, and you pivot to working in a Globo gym. Is that correct?
Correct. So Nashville, Tennessee, that internship's going well, and while I'm there, I also find a local CrossFit affiliate owner. Shout out to Stephen Baker at CrossFit Middle Tennessee, which is no more, but he great dude. He let me for like $600 a month. I was like his go-to guy. Like, I'd help him. We'd go to Lowe's, we'd put in the lifting platforms, I'd coach the classes, we'd take naps together in the afternoon because we've been up since fucking 4 a.m. Like, he was a great dude, and I saw how hard he worked, and I realized he loves his coaching, but he hasn't figured out the business thing, but none of us had figured out the business thing at that point in time.
So even as an employee, you could recognize that?
1,000%. I mean, he had a drawer, and people would just drop, like, literally just bring checks in whenever and just open a drawer and set them in there. Like, that was the system. But also, that's all we knew. It wasn't like it is today with guys like me and all the other dudes making all the business content. So like, but I knew then, I'm like, there's no way, I've never taken a business class in my life. There's no fucking way this is how it can be done. Because I want to be able to do what I want to do when he can't even do what he wants to do. He's stuck here 60 hours a week. I was like, there's got to be a better way. Now, growing up, I know Globo Gym. I worked out in Globo Gyms my entire life. I had been a personal trainer at a Globo Gym. Those guys know the business side, because again, that's the nature of that business. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go do that. I had a friend who got me a couple interviews, and I did well at the interviews. And you see in my content, this kid named Ambrose Laburu, he was one of the managers at a location in Nashville, Tennessee. He interviewed me, and he's like, bro, this is a dangerous place to work. You either come in and you perform, or you will be chewed up and spit out. And I went in there, and I took to it. They gave me my own club in the worst part of Nashville, Tennessee, this area called Antioch, where I was the only white employee mainly. And it was just this really run-down ghetto-ass club, and there was nobody had any money, but I had to be hitting $30,000 of personal training sales every single month. And we nickel and dime 1% of the time, and I hit some sales records. I did really well, and that eventually led me to kind of getting a gig in Charlotte, North Carolina, doing a similar job in a bigger, smaller company, bigger role.
Okay, so how do you pivot now back to CrossFit?
Yeah, so I've learned this Globo Gym thing. I'm like, part of me is like, I'm never going back. I'm like, I'm going to be one of these district managers for Gold's Gyms or Urban Actives, and I'm making crazy commissions. It's going to be awesome. And I'm finally bought myself a nice car, like following my dad's footsteps. I get my first Mustang GT. I buy it, and I'm like, oh, I'm the man. This is great. I've got money. I've never had this much money in my bank account. I get this job in Charlotte, North Carolina. After a quick scare, I got a DUI. I got pulled over drinking and driving in Nashville, Tennessee. And I thought I was good because I went to Qdoba at like 1 in the morning and crushed 2 large burritos. I'm like, oh, it soaked up all the alcohol. I'm totally legit to drive. They pull me over. I get popped. I don't blow. So I lawyered up, and he was a good lawyer. He got it knocked down to reckless operation. But in the state of Nashville or Tennessee, if you refuse to give a breathalyzer, you instantly lose your license for a year. So it's essentially almost the same exact punishment as getting a DUI in Nashville, but you don't have DUI in your record. So I take that, but now I've got this new gig in Charlotte. This other company has hired me to be their VP of personal training for the entire company, and they want me driving back and forth. They want me moving to Charlotte over the Charlotte clubs, and they want me driving back and forth to Louisville, Kentucky, and Elizabethtown, Kentucky every month.
So you'd accepted this job and then get
Yes.
this DUI right
Yes.
before they want you to start
Yeah,
traveling.
I can't tell them. Like, there's no way. I traveled to Charlotte. I crushed the interview. I got the job. I even got more money than I wanted than they had pitched. I got them to give me a budget for payroll. Like, I got everything I wanted. This was like a dream gig. Charlotte seemed really cool. I was excited. And then I get popped on this thing. So from the 1st to the 15th, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Charlotte Club. And then the 16th to the end of the month, I'm in Kentucky. But I have to drive. They're not going to pay for me to fly. Well, I've got a suspended license for a year. So I did a year of driving like the exact speed limit. And every time a cop would get behind me, I would shit my pants and like pull off and get off at an exit like I'm getting gas and wait for him to go. It would take me 3 hours longer every trip because I couldn't speed. I was constantly stopping because I was scared shitless.
So you were able to keep this a secret from the company?
Kept this secret. I even brought it. So what I did is then because now I'm the VP of whatever personal training. I got all this payroll. I hired a buddy from college, one of my best friends. He still lives here today. His name's Ralph. And I'm like, Ralph, I'll get you a job. You'll be a trainer. You'll make good money. I'll even let you live me for a while, but you have to drive me everywhere. And he's like, all right, yeah. He wanted to get out of Ohio. He was a few years younger than me. He went to Muscatine College. We were in the same fraternity. And he's like, yeah, let me, whatever. So he came, he'd drive me around. Half the time he was probably buzzed or drunk too when we were out. But like, so it was a horrible scenario. But, being stupid and, 20, whatever, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. But yeah, that was what kind of got me into Charlotte and the corporate thing. But to your question, the pivot, I still wanted to scratch that itch. I like every month. I mean, these clubs, I was helping generate tens of 20s of 30s of thousands of dollars in point of sale cash. I was like, why can't I do that for myself? Like, well, you don't have a building, you don't have this, you don't have that. Well, all these apartment complexes in Charlotte, you've driven around here enough, they have really nice fitness centers on site. Some of them up to 2,000 square feet. I'm like, these places all got their own little gyms. And Charlotte wasn't as popular in 2009 and 10 as it is today. So I just went in there and I was like, I made up a company. I was like, ESC Mobile Fitness. ESC stood for Elite Strength and Conditioning. It was an LLC I'd formed back in the day. And I was like, I just came up with this business model where I come in and every new person that joins the apartment complex, you'll book them with me and I will give them a free 60-minute consultation and PT session. If they decide to buy training from me, great. Now they're using your facility, which you spend a ton of money on. Now they're bragging about how their apartment complex has trainers on site. It gets seen as an amenity you offer, and I won't offer it to your competitors. And so it's like I had fresh leads all the time. So that grew to a crazy side hustle. I had like 6 1099 trainers working for me, and I was bringing home after taxes and expenses probably about $6-7 grand a month on top of my full salary and commission on my big kid job. But you start running the two of those for long enough, and you start slacking on your big kid job that's paying, it's got the salary and the benefits, all that stuff. And then you are like, okay, let me get back there. And then your side hustle drops. You're like, shit, the second I took my foot off the gas pedal, my side hustle stopped making as much money. I couldn't take those consultations, whatever. So luckily enough, fate intervened, and the company found out I had started a side business, and they believed that was against the non-compete. So they canned me like in a heartbeat. They sent corporate down from Kentucky to do it in person. It was like a really big deal for the company. So, because I had all these people underneath me, the clubs are making a ton of money. I'm sure that was a tough decision, but I pissed enough people off. They were